The diplomatic outpost floated above the blue curve of a quiet planet. It was built by many hands metal from Earth, crystal panels from the KRRH Empire, light conduits from the Archon worlds. Every hour, different tongues and frequencies echoed through its corridors. There was never silence here. Never stillness. Commander Hale walked fast along the central hall. His eyes kept moving between a tablet and the faces of the alien envoys around him. He had been through long days of arguments about border rights and resource lanes, and his ears ached from translation drones repeating every word twice. Peace between Earth and the others was fragile, but possible, he thought until the sound changed. At first it was only a pause in the chatter, a single missed beat in the hum of life. Then a soft knock sounded from the heavy door that led into the conference chamber. It was not loud. It was not even sharp, but the knock carried like a drop falling into a lake. The vibration touched every listener. They turned together, eyes meeting in confusion. The door slid open by itself. She walked in. She was human. That was the first shock. Every visitor to this chamber arrived through long clearance, escorted by guards. She had none. She wore a plain flight jacket, old color faded by sunlight. Her boots were scratched. Her hair was tied back carelessly. No medals, no ID badge, no translator device on her ear. Yet every alien I turned toward her as if gravity itself had shifted. Hale felt the tiny hairs on his arms rise. He noticed something stranger. The hum of the air recyclers had stopped. The faint tremor from the power conduits was gone. The translators blinked, but produced no voice. The world around him had gone silent. He could see people move their lips, but not a sound reached him. The silence was perfect, heavy, complete. He tried to speak, to call security, but his throat produced nothing. Panic flickered in his mind. The monitors on the wall showed data spikes. The environmental system still worked. Only sound itself had vanished. The aliens began to shift uneasily, their gestures tight and anxious. Some species used vibration to see, and now they were blind. The woman stopped in the center of the room. She looked around slowly, her calm eyes scanning the delegates, then finding Hale. Her gaze was steady, unafraid. In the emptiness, he felt her look like a voice inside his head. She lifted one hand and placed a small metallic shard on the table. Blue light shimmered once across its surface, then dimmed. Suddenly a whisper slid through the air. Faint but clear, the first sound in that impossible quiet. It came from her lips, though they barely moved. "Don't be afraid," she said. The words vibrated directly in his mind rather than his ears. The silence bent around them, soft as breath. Hale forced himself to step forward. His boots made no sound. The pressure in his ears told him something vast and invisible filled the room. He reached the table, looked at the shard, then at her. She watched him with gentle patience. When he mouthed, "Who are you?" she seemed to understand without hearing. Her reply came the same way, half felt, half heard. Mira Rowan, the name pulled at his memory. There had been an engineer by that name 9 years ago. She had worked on experimental resonance fields for the Earth Defense Command. Project shut down after a catastrophic accident. Every record said she died during a test. Yet here she stood, alive, holding the silence itself in her hand. The blue light pulsed again. Slowly, sound returned first, a faint hum from the ceiling lights. Then the rustle of clothing, then voices breaking through in confusion. Aliens shouted in their own tones. Guards ran in with weapons raised. Hale lifted a hand for calm, though his heart still pounded. "Stand down," he ordered. His voice sounded loud, strange after the void. He turned back to the woman. "Dr. Rowan, how did you get here?" She smiled faintly. "I was invited," she said. "By the silence itself?" The delegates exchanged puzzled glances. One of them, a tall creature of glassy skin, leaned forward. "Your presence disrupted our communication grid," it said through a translator. "Explain the weapon." "It isn't a weapon," she answered quietly. "It's proof that silence can speak louder than war." Her tone was calm, but the meaning behind it stirred every listener. Hale motioned her to sit, but she remained standing. The shard glowed again, this time spreading faint waves across the table. Instruments began to flicker. The hum of the station dropped lower, then steadied at a perfect pitch. Hale's technicians reported through his wristlink. "Commander, every frequency is aligning to a single pattern," the officer said, voice tight. "It's like she's tuning the entire station." Rowan looked around, her eyes soft with tiredness. "When the accident happened," she said, "I learned that every structure, every molecule, vibrates with its own rhythm. If you find the harmony, you can make them resonate together, or stop entirely." She gestured to the shard. "This is the result. A field of unity." Some of the aliens stepped back. "Unity through domination," one hissed. She shook her head slowly. "No, unity through understanding. Silence isn't control, it's balance." Hale watched the readout stabilize. The temperature, pressure, and magnetic fields all locked into precise equilibrium. The noise of hundreds of machines merged into a single soft tone, so gentle it felt like the station itself exhaled. "You silenced an entire outpost," Hale said. "Every system, every voice." "I only gave them the same rhythm," she replied. "Noise comes from fear. Harmony comes from trust." Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of discovery. Hal realized she was not threatening anyone. She was demonstrating something beyond weapons, something human hands had built from curiosity and pain. He remembered the stories of her accident. She had been working on sound shields to protect ships from plasma storms. When the field collapsed, she had disappeared, presumed lost to the void. He asked softly, "Where have you been all this time?" Her eyes seemed far away. "Between beats," she said. "In the space where sound stops but still exists. It took me years to find my way back. When I returned, I heard the galaxy's noise, the anger, the pride, the fear. I couldn't bear it. So I came here." The room was silent again, but this time naturally, respectfully. Even the most impatient delegates stayed still. Hale felt an odd warmth in his chest. For once, the tension of constant negotiation was gone. He saw in her presence something new, the quiet strength of a human who had touched the unknown and returned with peace instead of power. The guards lowered their weapons. The translator drones hovered uncertainly, unsure if they should keep recording. Hale nodded to them to continue. Mira looked at the aliens. "You fight with sound," she said gently. "Your ships use resonance cannons. Your diplomats use sonic persuasion. You rule by frequency. Humanity is the youngest voice here, but we listened longer. We learned to shape silence first." Her hand brushed the shard, and a faint harmonic pulse filled the chamber again. The light reflected off the walls, painting soft ripples that faded into nothing. No one felt fear this time. The vibration was warm, steady, peaceful. One of the elder envoys spoke in a low rumble. "You silence worlds," it accused, though its tone was weaker now. "I heal them," she replied. "When noise becomes pain, someone must remind it how to rest." Hale stepped closer. "You mean you can stop battles?" She met his eyes. "If both sides wish to listen, yes." He wanted to doubt her, but deep down, he knew what he had felt during that first moment of quiet. It wasn't destruction. It was awe. The stillness had weight, beauty, clarity. It had reminded him what real peace could sound like. Around them, the screens flickered back to normal. The meeting was over. The aliens looked shaken, uncertain how to write a report about a silence that couldn't be recorded. Mira reached for the shard. It dissolved between her fingers, leaving only a brief shimmer of light. "Where will you go now?" Hale asked. She looked toward the viewport at the distant stars. "There are other rooms full of noise," she said softly. "I'll knock once." And then she walked out. For several seconds, everyone simply stood there, unwilling to speak. Then the hum of the systems rose again. The translators restarted, the delegates began to murmur, and the outpost came back to life. Yet beneath the noise, Hal could hear a subtle tone, steady, calm, and human. It stayed long after she was gone. He didn't report her as a threat. He only added one note to the file. Subject demonstrates control of harmonic silence. Motivation, peaceful. Classification unknown but human. That night, alone in his quarters, Hallie replayed the meeting through the station logs. The cameras showed her walking in, setting down the shard, and speaking, but the audio track contained nothing, only the sound of his own breath catching. Every machine had recorded pure silence. He stared at the blank waveform until dawn, then whispered into the emptiness, "We heard you, Mira," and far beyond the station. Drifting between stars, a faint pulse answered. It was soft, almost nothing. Yet in its rhythm, the galaxy heard the quiet voice of Earth for the first time. When dawn touched the orbiting station, Commander Hale was still awake. The stars outside drifted like cold embers. He sat before his screen, replaying the same file again and again, the moment Myra Rowan had entered the chamber and turned noise into stillness. Every playback showed the same impossible thing. No sound, no background hum, no breathing, just motion and silence. Reports had started arriving before sunrise, from different corners of the Alliance. Communications towers had recorded a brief disturbance the exact second she walked into the outpost. Every system across 3 sectors registered a loss of signal for precisely 1 heartbeat. Some called it a malfunction. Others whispered a warning. But Hale knew better. He had been in that room. It was no weapon malfunction, it was human intent. He rubbed his eyes and leaned back. The lights of the station felt too bright, the air too loud. Even the faint ticking of the console irritated him. He found himself missing that silence, the strange comfort it carried. He had not realized until then how much chaos ordinary sound held. His communicator blinked. A message from Earth Command scrolled across the display. Dr. Myra Rowan classified. Level red. Subject must be detained and transferred to Earth immediately. No discussion. Hale sighed. Orders were orders. But deep inside, he felt resistance. He had seen fear disguised as control many times before. This message smelled of fear. He left his quarters, boots echoing along the corridor. The morning shift had begun. Engineers and officers hurried past. The usual chatter filled the hall again. He caught snippets of their talk. Everyone was discussing her. The woman who silenced worlds. The human ghost who returned from the void. When Hale reached the docking bay, he found something unexpected. Mira was already there, standing near a supply shuttle. No guards, no restraints. She looked as calm as if she had been waiting for him. You knew they'd send me, he said. She smiled faintly. Of course. They always try to put silence in a box. Frowned. You can't just walk away. Earth Command wants to question you. They think your technology is dangerous. It isn't technology anymore, she said softly. It's alive now. That made him pause. Alive? She nodded. When I vanished in the experiment, the field and I merged. Sound and I became one thing. I don't control silence, I share space with it. Hale looked around the hangar. Mechanics worked nearby, unaware that a living resonance stood a few meters away. He lowered his voice. Then why come here? Why risk everything? Because they forgot to listen, she said simply. The galaxy screams so loud with engines and weapons and pride that no one hears the truth anymore. I wanted to remind them. Her tone was gentle, but carried power. Hale felt his chest tighten. Remind them of what? That humanity was born in silence. Every heartbeat begins in it. We speak, we fight, we build, but we forget the quiet that started it all. Before he could answer, the hangar alarm flashed red. A deep vibration rolled through the floor. Voices shouted over the intercom unknown ships approaching. Hale turned sharply toward the control desk. Who's attacking? Not an attack, the operator said, pale. A diplomatic escort fleet from the KRRH Empire. They demand custody of the human woman. Hale's blood ran cold. They can't have her. They claim she disrupted their planetary frequencies, the operator replied. They say she silenced their communication grid for 30 seconds. Hale looked at Mira. She seemed neither surprised nor afraid. It was only an echo, she said softly. When I touched the field, it answered everywhere at once. The docking bay trembled as the alien ships locked position outside. Their forms glittered with mirrored scales, and energy flares circled their hulls. The station's shields hummed to full power. Hale turned to Mira. "If they board us, I'll take you apart to see how you work." "I know," she said. He grabbed her arm. "Then help me stop them." Her eyes met his, calm and strangely sad. "Stopping them with noise will only create more noise," she said. "But if you truly wish to stop them, trust silence." Before he could reply, she placed her hand on the shuttle wall. A faint glow spread across the metal, gentle and white. The hum of engines died instantly. The alarms fell quiet. Every weapon system froze mid-charge. The sound drained from the air until Hale could only hear his heartbeat. Then even that stopped echoing. Outside the viewport, the attacking ships halted. Their engines flickered, their energy waves dimming. The vast emptiness of space fell utterly still. No radio transmissions, no sensor pings, nothing. For 10 full seconds, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then the sound returned to slow, soft hum, like the ocean in the distance. The alien ships drifted away, turning toward open space. They didn't fire, didn't speak, didn't demand. They simply retreated, their formation dissolving into the void. When the last glimmer vanished, Hale exhaled shakily. "You stopped an entire fleet," he whispered. "I reminded them what quiet feels like," she said. "No mind can raise a weapon when it remembers peace." He looked at her differently, than not as a threat, not as an anomaly, but as something sacred. "They'll still come for you," he said. "Earth Command won't stop, and now the Empires will join them. You can't stay here." "I don't plan to," she replied. "But I can't leave without finishing what I started." "What do you mean?" She looked toward the distant blue planet below. "That world has been screaming since the first transmission left its sky. It's time someone taught it how to listen again." Hale followed her gaze. "You're going down there?" She nodded. "There's an old relay tower on the surface. It still broadcasts every Alliance frequency. I'll speak once. One message for everyone to hear. It could trigger panic," he warned. "It could also bring peace," she said softly. "Sometimes silence must be heard to be understood." He hesitated, then sighed. "I'll help you get there. But after that, you're on your own." Mira smiled, a small, grateful curve of her lips. "That's all I ever needed." The shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere, its wings cutting through clouds of silver vapor. Hale sat in the pilot's seat while Mira watched the planet below. Her presence filled the small cabin with a quiet calm. Even the engines sounded muted. He felt as if the ship flew inside a dream. They landed near the ancient relay tower, tall structure of rusted metal and alien glass. Forgotten by most, wind whispered through broken beams. The horizon glowed faintly with twin suns setting. Mira stepped out first, her boots crunching on the dry soil. "This place remembers," she said softly. "Every sound ever sent, every cry, every order. It's buried in the metal." Hallie checked his weapon and scanners. "We don't have much time. The KRRH could trace us." "They won't," she said. "They're still listening." She walked to the base of the tower and placed her palm against it. The air trembled. The ground itself seemed to hum beneath their feet. Hale's scanner blinked wildly as unseen energy rose from the soil. A low tone spread through the sky, beautiful and haunting. He realized it wasn't a machine sound, it was her. Her voice, perhaps her soul, reached into the relay's old circuits. Lights flickered. Lines of alien code streamed across dead screens. The tower came alive. "What are you doing?" he asked, awed. "Giving them a choice," she said. She lifted her face toward the stars. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, reflecting the hum of energy. The air thickened, the wind stilled, and then silence fell again. This time Hale didn't fear it. He felt his own thoughts slow, his heartbeat steady. The silence carried meaning, not emptiness. It was as if every sound in the universe had agreed to pause and listen. When the quiet finally broke, her voice spread across the coms clear, human and soft as dawn. "To every world, every voice," she said, "remember this sound. It is what life was before war, before pride, before the need to shout. This is your beginning. Do not forget it. Her message echoed across networks, through deep space relays, through ships and stations and mines. For one long minute, every civilization in the Alliance heard the same gentle silence between words. Then the transmission ended. The tower dimmed. The wind returned. Myra swayed slightly, exhausted. Halle caught her before she fell. Her skin felt cold, her breathing shallow. "You're burning yourself out," he said. "I'm part of it now," she whispered. "Everywhere the silence travels, a piece of me goes too." That's how peace spreads. He wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She wasn't dying. She was transforming, becoming the very harmony she had brought. Distant thunder rolled across the horizon. The sky shimmered with faint waves of blue light, spreading outward like ripples on water. Hell realized they weren't clouds. They were frequencies moving through the atmosphere. The planet itself had begun to hum in response. He looked up at the vast sky, filled with invisible music only the soul could hear. For the first time in his life, Commander Hale felt small, not weak, but humbled by the quiet strength of his species. A single human had reminded the galaxy what listening meant. Mira's voice reached him once more, soft and fading. "Every storm begins as silence. Remember that." And then she was gone. Her form dissolved into light, leaving only a soft vibration in the air, a pulse that matched the rhythm of his own heart. Hale stood alone beside the silent tower, wind brushing his face. Somewhere above, in the endless dark, the message of peace continued to travel, carried not by sound, but by the silence only humans could shape. Commander Hale stayed on the surface longer than any order allowed. He could not bring himself to leave the relay tower where she had disappeared. Every dawn, he sat near the broken panels and watched the horizon turn gold, hoping to hear her voice again. The air always carried a faint hum, soft, rhythmic, and peaceful. It was not wind or machine noise. It was something deeper, as if the world itself had started to breathe slower. Reports flooded in from across the Alliance. Entire fleets had gone silent for an hour. Cities on alien worlds reported sudden calm, crowds stopped shouting. Engines powered down on their own, and communication lines filled with pure static. Yet there was no damage, no harm. When the silence ended, the people spoke softly. They called it the quiet wave. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Some feared it was a human weapon. Others called it a miracle. Scientists tried to explain it through magnetic anomalies and gravitational resonance. But those who had heard Myra's final message knew better. It was not destruction. It was remembrance. Hale finally received the transmission he had been avoiding. Earth Command demanded a full report. He had delayed as long as possible, but the time had come. He activated his communicator, staring into the small lens where the generals' faces appeared. "Commander Hale," said the gray-haired director on the screen. "We've read your preliminary notes. You claim Dr. Rowan is gone." "Yes, sir," Hale said quietly. "But her presence remains. The silence she created is still spreading." The general frowned. "You make it sound like she turned into a ghost."
Oh.
"She became something larger than a person. Whatever she discovered, it's alive. It's peaceful, but alive." The panel of officials exchanged uneasy glances. "Commander, this phenomenon is affecting every system," one of them said. "Our satellites go dark every few hours. Civilizations are panicking. We need to contain it." "You can't contain silence," Hale replied. "You can only listen to it." They didn't understand. He saw it in their eyes, the same fear that had filled the galaxy before the quiet wave. They wanted control, not peace. "Return to base," the director ordered. "You are relieved of command until further notice." The screen went dark. Hale sat for a long moment, staring at the empty image. Then he looked up at the sky. The twin suns were setting again, painting the clouds in soft violet hues. He thought of Mira's words, "Every storm begins as silence." He stood and walked to the relay tower. The metal surface glowed faintly under his hand. "If you can still hear me," he whispered. "They're afraid of you." "But I'm not." The hum beneath his palm deepened, like a heartbeat answering his call. That night, the outpost orbiting above the planet went dark. Every system shut down without warning. The crew panicked, rushing through corridors with flashlights and shouting across deadcoms. Hale's shuttle, still on the surface, received the emergency code. He powered up the engines and ascended through the clouds. When he reached orbit, the sight froze him. The massive diplomatic station that once shone like a ring of silver now drifted quietly. Lights out, hull glimmering under starlight. Around it, a thin halo of blue mist pulsed in slow rhythm. He docked manually and entered through the emergency hatch. Inside, the air was cold and still. He could hear his own breathing echo through the empty halls. No alarms, no engines, only silence. It felt almost sacred as he moved deeper, found figures standing, motionless crew members. Soldiers, delegates all awake, all calm, their eyes open but peaceful. None spoke. None moved. They simply stood, breathing together as one. Hale's heart pounded. "Mira," he whispered, "what have you done?" Her voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Not what I have done, Hale. What they have chosen." He turned. She was standing at the end of the corridor, her form faintly luminous. She looked the same simple jacket, soft eyes, but her body shimmered like air under heat. She wasn't completely solid anymore. "You're alive," he breathed. "I'm part of the field now," she said softly. "The silence has learned from me and from you." He stepped closer. "What's happening to them?" "They're listening," she said. "For the first time in their lives, they hear everything. Their own hearts, their memories, their truth. When the noise stops, the mind sees clearly." He looked around at the frozen figures. None seemed in pain. Their faces were calm, eyes wet with quiet emotion. It was not death, it was peace. "How long will it last?" he asked. "As long as it takes," she said, "until they remember what they are." He shook his head slowly. "They'll call this an invasion, but let them," she replied. Peace always feels like invasion to those who built walls out of fear. Hale felt both awe and sorrow. "You're changing everything," he said. "I'm not changing," she said. "Humanity is—" Her gaze softened. "You stood by me when no one else did. That's why you can still move. The silence doesn't hold those who trust it." He swallowed hard. "What happens now?" She smiled faintly. "Now it spreads. Across systems, across hearts, until every world learns to pause and listen." He frowned. "And what about you?" "I'll go where the noise is loudest," she said. "That's where I'm needed most." He wanted to reach for her, but his hand passed through faint light. She was already fading. "Mira," he whispered, "will I ever see you again?" Her answer came like a breath across his mind. "Every time you find silence, I'll be there." Then she was gone. The air shimmered once, and sound slowly returned. People began to blink, move, and look around in confusion. They remembered nothing and lonely that they had felt peace. Hale walked back to the command deck. The systems restarted automatically, lights flickering back to life. Messages from nearby fleets poured in. Communications restored, no damage, Strange Com reported. He leaned on the console and closed his eyes, letting the soft hum of the ship fill his ears. For the first time in his career, the noise didn't feel heavy. It felt alive. Weeks later, the Alliance Council gathered again, this time on a neutral world. Every race sent delegates, but something was different. They spoke slower, listened longer, interrupted less. The same leaders who had once shouted over one another now paused before every answer, as if afraid to disturb a memory. Hale attended as Earth's observer. He listened quietly as they discussed a new proposal and agreement to suspend all weaponized sound technology across the galaxy. They called it the Rowan Accord. When the vote was finished, every hand, claw, or limb in the room was raised in favor. After the meeting, an old alien ambassador approached Hole. Its voice was deep and rough, but kind. "Your species did this," it said. "No one else could have turned silence into law." Hale smiled faintly. "She did this, not us." The ambassador tilted its head. She was human. That is enough. That night, Hale walked alone outside the hall. The sky above the alien capital glowed with strange colors, like frozen lightning trapped in clouds. He sat on the edge of a stone balcony and listened. The city below was quiet. No horns, no shouting, no alarms. Only soft wind moving between towers. He closed his eyes and whispered, "You did it, Mira." A soft vibration touched the air beside him, barely audible, but familiar. It was her rhythm, the same pulse he had felt at the relay tower. A calm wave washed through him. He spoke again, half smiling. "They'll make statues of you." The pulse answered faintly, like laughter in the wind. Months passed. The wave of silence continued to appear across systems, each time gentler than before. It arrived without warning, 10 seconds of peace, then faded. Entire civilizations began to plan moments of quiet to honor it. Music changed, poetry changed, even warfare slowed. It was as if the universe had learned to breathe with one heartbeat. Hale retired from service, settled on a small moon farm, far from the trade routes. He spent his days tending machines and his nights staring at the stars. Sometimes, when the wind dropped and the hum of generators paused, he could still hear her voice. One evening, as he stood outside his small cabin, the silence came again. The world around him froze. The stars brightened. The air felt thick, alive. He smiled, closing his eyes. "You're still watching?" he murmured. A soft whisper brushed his ear. "Always." Then, in the distance, the faint outline of a woman appeared, light and air blending into form. She looked at him with the same calm eyes, the same gentle smile. No words passed between them, but understanding filled the space. She raised one hand, as if in farewell, and then faded into the starlight. The silence lingered for a long moment, wrapping around him like warmth. When sound returned, it was softer, kinder. The world seemed new. Hale looked up at the endless sky. "Every storm begins as silence," he whispered, repeating her words. "And every peace begins with one voice that remembers." Somewhere beyond, across the dark sea of stars, a ripple of quiet moved again through ships and stations, through alien worlds and human hearts. It was her gift, her legacy. Not a weapon, not a miracle, but a reminder that even the smallest sound can be born from stillness. And from that day on, whenever someone knocked softly once, clear and people everywhere paused, knowing what came next, the silence, the peace, the echo of a human who had taught the galaxy how to listen.